All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a narrow strip of water you've probably heard of, the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it might seem like it's a world away, but this place is a critical piece of global infrastructure, and it has a direct line, believe it or not, right into your wallet and your daily life. And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling here. How on earth can one single waterway thousands of miles from where you are literally determine the price of everything? We're talking about your morning commute, the food on your table, the whole shebang. It sounds like an exaggeration, I know, but we're about to unpack how real it is. The New York Times put it perfectly. The Strait of Hormuz is this flashpoint where all the abstract stuff, all the political tensions, the threats, the alliances, suddenly becomes very, very real. It's the place where a threatening statement can turn into a higher price at the pump overnight. Okay, so to really get how this works, we've got to start with the basics. What is the Strait of Hormuz? Well, let's begin with its role as the world's most critical choke point. I want you to think of it like the most important and maybe most fragile valve in the entire global economy. So what's a maritime choke point? Well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a super narrow passage of water that forces a massive amount of economic value, in this case oil and gas, into a tiny vulnerable space. It's a geographic fluke, really, that gives whoever can threaten it an incredible amount of leverage. And the scale we're talking about here is just mind-blowing. Every single day, more than a fifth, 21%, of all the petroleum the world uses flows right through this one narrow strait. That's why even the slightest hint of disruption, just a little bit of fear, doesn't stay local. It goes global, and it goes global instantly. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The power of the strait doesn't actually come from it being shut down. That rarely happens. No, it comes from something much more subtle. The real weapon here isn't an actual blockade. It's the constant, credible fear that one could happen.
So let's break that down because it's a huge deal. A full military blockade? That's a doomsday scenario. It would be insanely costly for everybody, including the nation doing the blockading, and it would trigger a massive international response. But the threat of disruption? That's the real tool. It creates this kind of invisible uncertainty tax on global trade. Insurance premiums go up, shipping routes get rerouted, and pure market fear takes over. And this happens all the time.
This really proves a key point. In this game, information itself becomes a weapon. Markets don't just react to ships and missiles, they react to what they think is happening. A rumor, a grainy video, a vague press release, these things can move oil prices just as much as a warship can. Narrative becomes an economic force. And here's a pretty cool way to think about it all. The Strait of Hormuz basically acts like a geopolitical stock market, or an options market. You've got different players holding different options. Iran, for example, can choose to increase the perceived risk, and the market immediately prices that with higher oil costs. The U.S. can use its Navy to project security and lower that risk, and you see that priced in as lower insurance premiums. Every move is a signal, and the global market prices those signals in real time. Okay, so we've established how fear and narrative can move huge markets. But how does that drama in the Persian Gulf actually make its way to your credit card statement? Well, let's trace that ripple effect, step by step. It all happens in a cascade, like dominoes falling. It starts with a threat. Right away, energy traders price that risk into the cost of oil. That immediately jacks up shipping and insurance costs for the tankers. Then, businesses that rely on energy and transportation, which is, let's be honest, pretty much all of them, see their expenses go up. And what do? They pass those costs on to us, the consumer. And suddenly you're seeing inflation at the gas pump, at the grocery store. This creates a massive headache for central banks, who then have to make some really tough choices. This is the key takeaway, right here. This isn't just an oil story. It's a cost of living story, period. A shock in the Strait of Hormuz directly hits the price of airline tickets, the cost of fertilizer we need to grow our food, the operating costs of every delivery company, your heating and electricity bills, and even the interest rates businesses have to pay. It gets everywhere. And that economic anxiety, it doesn't just stay in bank accounts or on spreadsheets. Nope, it spills over into our daily lives, and it creates very real social and political pressure. This is where the story gets even more personal for everyone. I mean, think about it. Fuel prices are what you might call psychologically loud. They're posted on giant signs on practically every corner. You can't escape them. And because they're so visible, they often become this kind of public referendum on how well the government is doing. So when prices spike because of some distant conflict, it can morph into a full-blown domestic political crisis really, really fast. Which leads us to maybe the best way to think about the strait. It's not just an energy corridor. You could call it a trust corridor. When it's stable and things are flowing smoothly, we all benefit from predictable prices and a stable economy. But the moment it's threatened, distrust spreads like a virus. Citizens start to lose faith in their government's ability to keep life affordable, and maybe even in the global system itself. So where does this all leave us? Well, while the Strait of Hormuz is still incredibly critical, the nature of global power is changing. The logic of Hormuz, the idea of controlling a choke point, is now being applied to all sorts of new arenas. Right, the new battlegrounds are all about what you could call system control. It's not just about oil tankers anymore. Now it's about who controls the undersea cables carrying all our data, who controls the satellite networks we need for communication, who controls the supply chains for rare minerals and battery materials, or the very few places that can manufacture high-end semiconductors. The strategy is identical: gain leverage by controlling a critical flow. And that leaves us with one last really crucial question to think about. The Strait of Hormuz has taught us a powerful lesson. The global systems we rely on every single day are way more fragile than we think. Its narrow waters cast a very, very wide shadow. So the real question we should all be asking ourselves now is this: what is the next choke point that we're all ignoring?